Today's metaphysical lesson is inspired by a scripture from Matthew chapter 14, verses 24 through 30, and it reads, The disciples were struggling on a boat during a storm. The strong wind had risen, and they were being tossed about by heavy waves. In the early morning hours, Jesus came towards them, walking on water. When the disciples saw him walking on water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, It must be a ghost. But Jesus called out to them, Be not afraid, he said. Stand strong. I am here. Peter said to Jesus, If it's really you, can I come to you? So Jesus beckoned to him. So Peter went off the side of the boat and walked on water towards Jesus, but became distracted by the strong wind and the big waves. And when he did, he began to sink and shouted, Save me. And so it is written. This scripture is one of the most misunderstood in the Bible. It is an allegory filled with symbolic meanings, hidden messages, and spiritual lessons. The Bible was never meant to be taken literally. Take into consideration the way people communicated more than 2,000 years ago. In ancient times, if you asked a question, they would tell you a story, and the answer was hidden in the story because they wanted you to use your mind to process thought. And you must take into account the culture of the people at that time, or you may miss the spiritual lesson. Consider the Dark Ages, when people could not read or write. Allegories or storytelling was something they could relate to. Not only were the allegories filled with wisdom and truth, they were always persuasive, informative, and entertaining. So let's explore this lesson from a metaphysical point of view. All of life happens according to the laws of nature. To walk on water would defy the law of gravity. If you drop a stone into the ocean, it will sink. Natural law is that law that is set in motion to govern all that is in creation or in being. These physical and spiritual laws of the universe are immutable and unchangeable and are not a respecter of persons. Not a respecter of persons. No one in the physical world can manipulate God's laws. Today's lesson has deep symbolic meaning, so let's explore them. The ship being tossed about by the waves is symbolic of the individual self, the ego or personality, navigating the sea of life. Waves and high winds are symbolic of mental turbulence, fear, doubt, and resistance that disturb our inner peace. These are the chaotic forces of the outer world and the lower mind that unsettle us spiritually. Walking on water shows mastery over the subconscious mind, the ego, over emotional turmoil. Divine awareness is not affected by the turbulence of the human experience. Jesus represents the Christ consciousness, the divine aspect within each person. Jesus walking on water is a demonstration of true spirit having mastered the human condition. Water is symbolic of our human emotions, emotions, energy in action. They can be very powerful and all-consuming if we allow it. We can choose to rise above them. We can choose to rise above our emotions, or we can drown in them. This lesson tells us that Jesus appeared just before dawn, symbolizing a dark or difficult time that is about to shift into a spiritual awakening. It is always darkest before dawn. The apostles were afraid and cried out in fear. The disciples symbolized the disciplines of the soul, aspects of our inner faculties, faith, strength, truth, and understanding. Seeing Jesus walking on water and being afraid suggests that when divine truth or higher consciousness appears, it may first be misunderstood or cause fear. The ego fears what it does not understand or cannot control. Be not afraid, he says. Stand strong. I am here. This is an example of Christ consciousness, the Christ consciousness within, reassuring the soul that all is well. This is the voice of the higher self, affirming its presence in the midst of trials and tribulations. I am is the divine name of Source, the source of creation, and represents the realization of spiritual identity beyond fear, doubt, and worry. Peter wants to walk on water. Peter represents faith, impetuous, bold, yet incomplete. Peter's request to walk on water shows the soul's desire to transcend limitation, to rise above the chaos, and unite with Christ consciousness. It is the spirit attempting to move into divine consciousness through faith. Peter walked on water. For a moment, his faith worked. Peter rose above his fear and emotions, demonstrating that when we are centered in divine awareness, we can overcome any obstacle we are faced with. This was a spiritual high point, a moment of alignment with our higher selves. When we align our consciousness with that of the source of our origin, amazing things can happen and do. But when Peter looked at the waves and felt the wind, he became afraid and began to sink. This was a shift in his consciousness that allowed fear and doubt to come to the surface. The shift from faith to fear causes Peter to sink. The high winds represent external distractions, appearances, and fears that cause the soul to fall out of spiritual alignment. Shifting its focus to the strong winds means giving power to outer conditions instead of trusting the inner divine presence. As Peter began to sink, he calls out, "Save me." This symbolizes that even when we think we are sinking in the sea of life, the soul can still call upon the divine presence within to rescue us. Our elder brother Jesus taught us how to save ourselves from ourselves through self-awareness and divine love. Perfect love casts out all fear. Never forget a truth that is older than time. Greater is the power that is within you than the power that is within the world. We have forgotten who we truly are. Are you living as your authentic self? Most people are not. How did we get so distracted from the nature of reality? It is written that to know yourself is the greatest accomplishment while we are still in the physical world. For we live and move and have our being in a spiritual universe. God is spirit. We are spirits, unfolding on the long journey to total self-enlightenment. Today, claim your divine inheritance as the offspring of the Most High. If you took a bucket of water from the ocean, that bucket of water would contain all the elements of the ocean. It is the same with you and Source. We are made of, endowed with, all the same principles, energy, light, and consciousness as our divine parent. Stand strong in your spiritual truth, for there are many distractions on the spiritual path to growth and unfoldment. Dare to trust. Dare to live as your authentic self. Dare to walk through this world with spiritual confidence. Dare to believe in divine order. Dare to trust your inner knowing, your intuition, for it will never fail you. The time will come when every spiritual eye shall see, know, and understand their true nature. A time when all of us will achieve the same level of spiritual consciousness as did the master teachers who came before us. One of Jesus' most important quotes, and this is one that most have not incorporated into their consciousness. If you believe in me and the works that I have done, even greater things than these shall you do. So let it be spoken, so let it be done. Namaste.